Lovely. Angela got it. Good evening, everyone. Happy St. Patrick's Day. It is the Executive Committee meeting for Manhattan Community Board 3 for March 17, 2022. We'll start with attendance. Larissa, go right ahead.
Or happy St. Patrick's Day and happy Purim, everybody. Attendance tonight, Paul Rangel. Eric Diaz,
Yes, I'm here.
Tariq Darrell,
Yes.
Larissa Shainberg present, Laura Lugo,
Here.
Herman Hewitt.
Looks like he's absent.
Okay, great. Let's see, Nayli is present.
Yes.
Jackie Wong. Jackie, I think I heard you.
I'm sorry.
There you are.
Yes.
Okay, Linda Jones,
Here.
Michelle Cooper-Smith,
Present.
Trevor Holland,
Yes.
present, and David Crane.
Here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Larissa. Any objections or changes we need to make from the previous month's minutes in February? They were sent out a couple of weeks ago. Hearing none at this table, hearing none on Zoom. So they're approved. Okay, we're actually going to change this up, the order for tonight. I was going to start with the arts and culture reso, but I know Michelle has to sign off in a few minutes. So we're going to do her board chair report right now. Michelle, go right ahead.
Paul. Thank you. Okay, so obviously we don't know if all the stipulations will have been signed yet because they have until tomorrow, but I just wanted to flag for everyone one application that I expect to come up at full board. That is 191 Orchard Street, which is just below Houston Street. For those of you who have been around for a while, that location used to be the 6th Ward. It was one of the, it was a very bad
You're on mute. Your sound went out. It was a very bad.
Sorry. Okay, so 6th
Was it
Ward, bad operator got its SLA, its license revoked by the SLA. That's important because we take into consideration the previous operation because issues from there could reflect on potential future issues with a new operator. The people who applied for that space operate the cabin on East 4th Street between A and B. And Susan has worked diligently to try and mitigate ongoing issues at that location. And Susan, if you want to take over this part, or I can just do it, but that use of the backyard there, which is against their legal stipulations that they agreed to with the SLA, having live music, which they're not allowed to do per their stipulations, also leaving their doors open past 10 p.m. These are issues that have been flagged by the residents that Susan had worked to mitigate. We also heard from Clint, our former, who was a former member of the SLA committee about this. He's a founding member of the Block Association over there, and he had tried to work on these issues as well. It seemed, from Susan's experience, that these were operators that were unwilling to work with the community board and with the residents to mitigate issues. A new thing popped up during the pandemic, I believe, Susan, that they were having cigar parties in the backyard, which obviously they're not allowed to use the backyard. Also smoking, very difficult for the residents who live above it. It's a residential building with apartments surrounding it. And so as a committee, we decided to deny this license because of, there's already a negative track record for those applicants. And so we were loath to give them another chance, especially since this location on Orchard Street also has a backyard, which they wanted to use. And we just had no faith that they would abide by their stipulations at this new location because they were not doing so at their current operations. Susan, is there anything you wanted to add there?
This started pre-COVID. I got a lot of emails and photographs from the Block Association I tried working with the police. They not only use the backyard, which is illegal for zoning, but also illegal for the stipulations, but they had huge parties, and I did contact, it was the former commanding officer at the 9th, and he told me that the party was a college graduation party for a cop from the Bronx, and he wasn't going to shut down any party that was for police. Police took over the whole block. I mean, it was like, it looked like a war zone. That was just one incident. Again, the police at the precinct meeting, the commanding officer introduced me to the owner, and said that he was trying to be a good neighbor. He was doing that with the officer. I said, what you're doing is illegal. I made it very clear. I said, it's illegal and against your stipulations. He never stopped, including having cigar parties with all the cigar smoke going into the apartments. This is in the backyard. And it was constant. So I got to say, when I spend a lot of time, because people lie about their stipulations, it's just something I find it's really bad because it takes a lot of our time away from serving the community, and it's very bad. The Block Association, it's a well-established, probably 15-year-old block association that does support a lot of licenses. This month they supported another license, so they're not anti-license. So it's just very, very problematic.
Thanks, Susan. So yeah, I expect this to come up at full board, either from people from the public speaking or if they're, member questions. So, feel free to contact me if you have any questions about this. I unfortunately did not get my minutes done, but have a goal to have them to you, Susan, by tomorrow morning so we can get them into the vote sheet. But yeah, please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or ask me questions now if that's easier.
One thing I think I should add is a police officer came and testified them, which they're not allowed to do. And I have reported that person to Internal Affairs.
Okay. And anybody on Zoom or anybody at the table have any questions for the show? Okay, so I'm going to ask the question, what we only hear 4 per side and the agenda item. That's our cutoff. So I'm imagining there's going to be a lot of people who want to speak on Tuesday night. Just
Only
so
4 people are allowed.
and I'm choosing the first 4 I see. Is that all right?
The Block Association has been in touch with me, and they asked if they could have 1 or 2 people speak, and they want to arrange with other residents, how to split it. So in the past, if they arrange and say, okay, we want these 4, we've let them do it. If they don't arrange it, then it becomes your issue to just pick which ones you want.
Okay, that's fine. But if they set something up, I will honor it. I don't know, for people who are supporting this specific item, I'm imagining it's going to be a lot of people supporting it. They brought a lot of people on Monday night, correct?
8. I
Yes.
counted.
Yes.
4,
8, 4, 8, 8. Okay, I see. All right. Well,
Supporting to have it or supporting to be against it?
supporting to have the bar. Okay, so it's 8. So we chop down to 4.
For 8 to 7 and 1, I couldn't tell what they were saying.
Is there any other problematic items that we'll be facing on Tuesday night?
I don't expect any other ones, no.
And just for clarity purposes, this was an outright denial, correct?
Correct, outright denial. Yeah.
Is there an anticipation they're going to want to pull it from tonight?
I would really prefer not to, because they came last month and withdrew after hearing that people were against it and came back this month. And it's already taken us like an hour and a half of our meeting time over the past 2 months. So I would strongly prefer for us to deal with it at full board if possible. I mean, there's a possibility that someone puts a vote up to overturn the denial. And if that wins, we'd have to craft stipulations. And I don't think that's an appropriate thing to do at full board. So in that case, yes, we could send it back to the committee, but I feel like that should be the only reason we do that.
Okay.
We've already heard, we've heard literally like an hour of testimony, it's not.
I don't want to hear any more, but on Tuesday night, whatever.
If there's an attempt to send it back to committee to work out stipulations, I'm going to argue we should never do that, because they are not going to they'll say anything to get the license, and they're going to ignore the stipulations. That's the experience. So I think that would be not only wasted effort, it would be a disservice to the community.
But what's the option? If somebody pulls it and say, we want to change it to approval, you can't approve it without stipulations.
Oh, okay, I understand that, but if we vote down the one resolution, then we can talk about that. But if someone says, I want to refer it back to committee so that they will negotiate stipulations, I just argue against it because I think it would be not a productive thing for us to do.
So I don't think
That's
that's
all.
what we're trying to say. What we're trying to say is if people want to change it to an approval, you would need to create stipulations, which you can't do at the full board.
So if there is a change to want to approve, will it have to go back to committee or not?
And-
Because the stipulations will have to get.
Except the committee could just deny it, yes.
Right, okay. I'm just trying to navigate any.
Those is all the
There
possibilities.
is a clock ticking, so, you don't really have time to do that at the full board. This is,
All right, well, I don't want to keep hammering on this. We can have a conversation offline before full board on Tuesday night about this. If there's any potential landmines that might be coming our way. I know there's a lot of chatter around the community about this already, so.
Can I just say, this is not the first time this has happened. This comes up periodically when someone doesn't like a license or not. It came up, it was terrible. 106 Rivington was a terrible, terrible, terrible situation. I remember there were accusations of racism, and Rosie Mendez had to come to the full board and say, this is not racism, this is not a liquor license. But it was terrible for a long time. I don't know, sounds like Eric remembers it. It was terrible for a very long time.
All right. Michelle, is there anything else?
Nope, that's it. Thank you for letting me go early. I appreciate it.
All right. So we're gonna go back. And
The camera's over there.
yeah, the camera's there, so everybody's kind of way there. There's a nice big camera right there. The mics are right here. Welcome back to the office. This is what it is now. All right. Now we're gonna go backtrack. So arts and the arts subcommittee met this month, but they don't have a full committee to report to. So they are going to report to us, and Andrea has joined us tonight. There is a resolution that they have. It's on the back of your agenda. It was emailed earlier. And I will let Andrea take it over.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So this is a pretty simple resolution. It pertains to a recent report that was put together by a collaboration of 3 organizations with the support from the Mellon Foundation. It's the first of its kind. It surveys people of color-led organizations that work in the arts and are supportive of emerging artists, creative professionals, and so forth. And it looks at various, like this kind of the state of the field. And it also created a map so people can look at it online. So we heard a number of recommendations from one of the authors, Kemi, and we voted to endorse the top recommendations that are put forth by the initiative. And I should make a caveat that it is a kind of a vague ask, in that there's the primary ask is a $1 million fund, but there's a lot of openness towards public-private partnerships, I suppose, like philanthropy and government partnering to make that fund a reality. I think they're realistic that $100 million designated exclusively for people of color might not be entirely realistic, but with some partnerships, perhaps we can get there. And then some of the other recommendations that we endorsed were establishing a baseline budget for POC arts in the city's annual budget, invest in place as a long-term strategy for people of color, arts stability and thrivability, fostering career and community building among professionals and POC arts entities, self-determined data needs and priorities for and about POC arts entities, and invest in higher and sustained visibility for POC arts entities in New York City. So again, yeah, pretty short in general, but take any questions.
Oh, I have a
Go ahead,
question.
ma'am.
So it's about the first two, the whereas and recognizing. So the whereas, it's we're CB3 is home to more than 50 arts and cultural organizations. So mentioned in the CB3 area, but it mentions Black, Latino, or Puerto Rican constituencies. How about the Chinatown constituency?
That's a good amendment to put in there, because the second recognizing actually mentions it a little bit more.
The second
So
one
it's
is
a
more
little-
about the orgs, which includes, I guess, non-cultural orgs, right? But I know for a fact there are arts organizations.
The whole report is about cultural organizations.
Oh,
It's not just general organizations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you're right. For consistency,
Including.
I could just make an amendment to change it so that it's consistent with the second one. People of color, like Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian, Pacific Islander.
So were you offering a motion to put in?
Yeah.
I second that.
Okay,
So what is it? I just want to capture.
so in the first whereas, is to make it more consistent with the second, recognizing.
With the first
The, putting all the groups in.
And where does that go?
On the first whereas, where it says Black, Latino, Latino A, Latina, Latinx, Latinx, I'm going a little.
Oh, I see.
We're going to put everything.
Instead of saying it serves Black, Latino, et cetera, it's going to have all of that.
Yes.
Got it.
And it won't single out Puerto Rican, it's gonna,
I think,
in the first one?
I think it's probably better to just have consistency and put it
The same.
crib the exact what starts with people of color led and then the end of the parentheses there.
And use that instead.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, use that, what's in parentheses in the second.
Latinx instead of Latino, Latina. A friend of mine scolded me that Latinx is a white people word just last week. And I used it.
It's been out there.
That's another conversation.
You got 4 months.
So,
If I could suggest, can I, would it be okay if I copied and pasted that the way it's in the second paragraph into the first paragraph? I think it's very inclusive at that point.
I'm fine with it.
Consistent.
Does anybody object to that? Anybody on Zoom object to that? Okay. All right, so we'll put it in as that. We'll put it as that. This is my question. So why is it recognizing in those two clauses and not whereas? Correct me, I'm all ears on this. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 whereas
Yeah,
clauses.
Not the general
And
form.
two
It just needs to be,
recognizing.
it just needs to be whereas, right?
It should be just
Yeah.
whereas. We'll-
So just make it whereas recognized.
Instead of recognizing, you'll say.
Whereas, and then recognizing. Okay. So
Okay. I just want
If you believe it is true, you say whereas.
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
I love that.
to, Board Committee, Board 3 supports the recommendations and
Is that where that comes
your
from?
committee voted on this.
Love it.
Yes.
Make things.
I'm presume we're gonna have to vote on this
Yes.
ourselves, so we'll do a vote right now. Where's Larissa? Larissa, we're gonna need a vote on this.
okay, a roll call vote.
Yep.
Great. All righty. Okay, so for first vote, this will be in support of the Hugh Arts in 6 recommendations to citywide lawmakers as amended. Paul Ringo,
Yes.
Eric Diaz,
Yes.
Tariq Darrell,
Yes.
Larissa Shainberg, yes. Laura Lugo,
Yes.
Herman Hewitt. I think he was out, right?
Mm.
Kate Lee,
Yes.
Becky Wong,
Yes.
Linda Jones,
Yes.
Michelle still on?
No, she's off.
No, okay. Trevor Holland
Yes.
and David Crane.
Yes, that motion passes. It'll be under the executive committee report for Tuesday night, but Andrea, I'll ask you to deliver that. All right.
And be prepared, there may be a question about why is it on exec, and we need to be able to say
And now-
it's timely or whatever it is, yeah. Okay.
It's because they don't have a committee to report to right now. That's the reason why. So that's why we heard it here tonight. All right, thank you. You're more than welcome to stay. And
Do I just put this here?
You're not on
no,
there.
no, yeah.
It was just a regular-
This is for other. Thank you.
I will be individually emailing you to ask you.
Okay, got it.
All right, okay, we're back to regularly scheduled program. All right, it is now time for my report. As you can see, as of last night, we are now hybrid for this month or remote for most meetings up until April 15th. The governor signed an extension of the executive order literally at the last minute last night, which is why we are hybrid tonight, and that's why we signed that. I'm sorry, we just got signed out.
What happened?
Somebody signed in using the account.
We're still good?
We're
Okay.
still having new things.
You all hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, just want to make sure that we're okay. All right. So as you can see, we're having some landmines to deal with. I'm thinking we will probably be face-to-face officially next month. I don't think there's going to be any more extensions unless there's actual legislation that is signed that makes this option permanent. There's a push to try to make this option permanent. The borough president, along with Senator Hoylman, wrote an op-ed in the Daily News yesterday, asking for legislation on this to get this option permanent, hybrid meetings. I do foresee, though, if it does become permanent, I would at least like the executive committee meeting to be face-to-face. I know it's easier for Zoom, especially if you're coming home from work and run on and go on your phone, go on your laptops, it is easier, but I like this specific meeting to be face-to-face. I said that since I became chair, that I want this meeting to be face-to-face so that way we can have all the necessary parties at the table. It is what it is for today, but we're working through it, all right? We will be on Zoom Tuesday night. We will not be at PS20. So those people who were kind of on the fence about Tuesday night, I will send out an email to the entire full board this weekend saying we will be on Zoom Tuesday night. The committee meetings in April will also be on Zoom all the way up until April 15th. Trying to look at our
We have
calendar.
land uses afterward.
Land use will be after, so what's Parks Day?
Parks and SOA are both beforehand.
Okay, because I don't see a date on here.
There's no date on it?
No. So we'll make sure we have that updated. Land use would be probably in jeopardy of having to be on site, Jackie. And if anything, we could probably do it here, this office, if we don't find any other site.
Land use has to be here
Land use has-
because the presenter is out of town and can only appear virtually.
Okay.
And this is the only place we have a hybrid meeting.
So right now that it will be here. So that will be the change on the calendar. Right now it has just the Zoom link, but it will probably be here unless we hear something different. Executive committee will also be here and full board will be at PS20 in April if there is no other changes or extensions or legislation that comes through. Thank you for your patience and your flexibility. It's been an interesting couple of days or so when we were hearing rumors that it might get extended, and it was extended for a month. So that's where we're at for there. I was at Borough this morning, and that was hybrid as well, but I actually went in person. That was kind of cool to see some of my fellow chairs and outside of the Zoom feature and getting a chance to talk to them. And I just wanted to talk about agenda items and lack of getting them in a timely manner to the office so we can set things up. As you see, it's already difficult to navigate whether we're going to be on site or whether we're going to be on Zoom or anything of that sort. That's one landmine. The second one is not getting these items in so we can invite the guests, get things prepared, prepare draft resos, anything of that sort, get information that is needed for your committees. We need to get these items in a timely manner. What's the date that you want, Susan, for?
I never gave people a specific date because I try and work with people, but it certainly need at least tentative agendas the week, the week before the exec.
Right. So exec is on a Thursday night, at least the week before.
Yeah.
By Friday, we should have items. So there's invitations out. So if we need to get a site, if it's not at the CB3 office and it needs to be somewhere else, we need to tell people where to go. I'm going to open this up for discussion from many of the committee chairs. Are you struggling with getting agenda items that you need to put forth onto your agenda? Are you struggling with that? Or do you feel like there's not a lot of stuff? Like, tell me what needs to happen on this end. I'll take anybody.
Just so I can understand a little bit better, are we having an issue with it being sent into the office on time, or just what to put on the agenda?
It's both. It's being on time and what are you putting on? So I will tell you, I will share this. Usually on Tuesday afternoons, I do come here and I check in with Susan. And I was kind of a little perturbed on Tuesday when I was canceling a lot of meetings, saying there's no items here, there's no items there, cancel, cancel, cancel. We're not doing our job for the community. And as a community board, if we're not putting items on for committee, I know a lot of us work different jobs, we wear different hats in the community. I get it. I have a job where I work 8 to 4, and after that, I am available to everyone. I know everyone does a lot of different things, and I'm so appreciative of that. But this is still a responsibility that we have to uphold. And if you are struggling, you need to let me know. You need to let the office know. How can we best assist you in putting items together? What are the things we need to find? I have some suggestions, but I want to hear from all the committee chairs first. Does that explain?
So I guess I'm asking, is it best, or I don't know how it was done before CB3? Are you asking that we come to the office to find out what's happening in the community, being that we were told not to take personal or listen to the community and try to add those things to the agenda? Should we come to the office and see what the 311 complaints are, or Susan tell us what it is so that way we know what to add to the agenda? Because it seems a little bit too open to me.
I think that's because I'm working with the chairs consistently, so the committee members don't necessarily see that.
Right.
Yeah.
So committee members, no matter what committee you're on, whether you're transportation or human services, you should let your chair know, hey, I think this is something we should think about or talk about, policy related or whatever, though you're on human services, right? If there's something that you know that you can share with me, you should shoot me an email with Susan on the CC line and say, hey, maybe this is something we can put on as an agenda item for May or June or something like that. That's where the committee members really come into play, because you can help build the agendas and then the committee chairs finalize. So, and then it goes to Susan to get it done. So that's where that comes into play.
Like, for example, at Human Services, you'll notice that Larissa did that. She specifically asked about the HHC state asked, for the budget, and Gouverneur in particular. And then she specifically said, it would be, she wants to request it to put on the Human Services agenda at some point later. So, we've started moving in that. So that's really helpful from the committee. But I think Susan mainly works with the chairs, right?
Yes.
I work, yeah, 100%. And just so that they know, because so much is going on, like me and I talk probably 10 times a week. So if you keep in touch with her about issues, and what's going on, and, sometimes it may be something that's already being dealt with, so if we know, we can clarify and talk about it. We can always have an ongoing conversation.
Okay, Tariq, go ahead.
Is it possible, because I know like even on this agenda, we have old business, new business things. Is it possible to add new business to the committee agendas at the end? I think for members who may not know that even we have new members coming in, that's a moment in committee to vocalize anything to talk about.
That's usually on meeting agendas. Correct me if I'm wrong, committee chairs.
It's not on here.
Not on here, but.
No, we don't, but the chairs do it whenever.
Chairs normally say, is there any old business or new business? It may not be on the page, but usually chairs say that. Correct me if I'm wrong, committee chairs, anyone who's on Zoom, anyone's here. Go ahead, David.
I don't ever say that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So some don't, but I also think that maybe it's an opportunity to say, not just asking new business, but hey, our job is to recommend this to the office for the next meeting. So are there any items? I know Andrea sometimes will text me, hey, do you have any agenda items or things, sometimes I call it responding at that because it's a text, so I'm like, but I think that if it's done in the committee's work, we probably can kind of speed the process.
Well, it should be done in the committee's work. Go ahead.
This is a good idea. Maybe new business isn't the right word. The thing is that when we tried this in the past, we're not supposed to be doing substantive discussions without having put it on the agenda. Certainly, we should not be passing resolutions under new business, even under old business. But even when we tried to have a discussion about, well, what objectives might we have? It's like, should that maybe have been on the agenda, because that will attract people, activists. It will attract activists like my transportation committee. So it's not a bad idea to just have an open item at the end, as long as we understand that we're not passing resolutions during it. We are generating ideas and planning.
So what's the open item?
So I'm not sure what that's called.
So what I would suggest, because you're not going to do it every month, but if you want to say discussion of future items, ask me to put that on the agenda.
Should it be next month or next meeting's agenda discussion?
So my
It's going to go right
recommendation
now onto the
Wow.
transportation one, because we've got nothing.
Right. This is the opportunity of exec to add or change or amend anything. And I think this is all the committee chairs who are on Zoom right now. What's the phrase you wanted to use, David? Open.
Discussion of
Future agenda.
Future agenda items. There we go. So that's my suggestion for all the committees. Let me
Yeah, it
see
is a
which
good idea
committee-
to put it
which
this
committee chairs are on. I see Linda, Jackie, and Trevor. Do you have anything you want to add? Linda, I know yours is difficult because it's very specific, but Trevor, Jackie.
Yeah, I don't have anything. I mean, I do think we should have a deadline to get our items in on the agenda. That's just standard practice.
So the reason we don't is because we can accommodate certain things, like if you want to add something like discuss future agenda items, I can do that easily.
Sure.
If you want somebody to come speak from association, I may need 3 weeks to do that. And that's why I try not to just have an early date. I prefer working with you. If we talk anyway, so just say, look, this is what I'm thinking of. Can we get this done? Can we get that? Because some things I can get done very quickly and some things take time. That's why I'm trying to accommodate your different needs. And that's why I'm not giving a deadline.
Yeah, I do think that it's a balance, because I think we're balancing the chair. It's probably work, personal life things, so it's taking time. And I think a lot of the communication has just been with the committee chairs. And so moving forward, how do we activate committee members to support what's happening and the work that's happening on the board? So I think this will, support committee chairs after that email, after that meeting, to just say, hey, here are the next agenda items for discussion, who are we inviting, and that'll support your discussion with them.
Yeah, and just another thing to say, I think one of the reasons people are suddenly struggling is because for a long time, de Blasio knew his administration was ending and he was pushing all the stuff through. So you didn't have to put anything on. The city was putting loads of stuff on every agenda, and all of a sudden you're looking at your agendas, there's nothing there. So I think that's kind of a transition that people are going through with this new administration. It may not last a long time. You may start seeing a lot of stuff. Agencies aren't staffed up yet. They're just beginning to send stuff out. So that's going on. The other thing is, particularly with new members, a lot of people don't really understand what's an agenda item, what's a service delivery, there's different kinds of things. And I would think that's a good thing for the chair to discuss at the meetings.
Jackie or Trevor, I don't know if somebody wanted to speak.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Yeah, now we are doing this hybrid thing. I don't know if you can see my raised hands, but obviously Trevor did. It's a little weird to me, but anyway. So for the land use, we usually have enough agenda items, and I guess what we need to do is work closer with Susan just to get the agenda items sooner in the month, so she can invite the guests to come. I think that's what we need to do. But for the land use, usually regarding agenda items, we usually have enough. I don't know if Linda or Trevor disagree, but usually we have agenda items.
The only thing I would add, since a lot of what people would like to see at parks, but we cannot do our service delivery, and I'm sure Susan is familiar with that, but we generally have enough park items. And a lot of our items are really driven by an agency. So parks or EDC will say, I need to get an approval for this by next month. And sometimes they tell us at the last minute. And it's driven that way. The other way is if at a meeting, so an agency like Parks will say, well, we want to do a design for Hamilton Fish, we'd like to come back. Sometimes that translation is lost because that means that someone's got to communicate to the office that they'd like to come back the following month. Previously, before COVID, it was made easy because Susan would attend a lot of those meetings and would take the notes on her own. They are reflected in the minutes, but sometimes they aren't as clear. That means I have to take that responsibility to see what agency said in what month, because we don't exactly know what month. They just tell us they'd like to see it in the next few months. But other than that, we typically have a lot. And we will probably continue to have a lot for the next 4 years, and we've had a lot for the previous 5 years. So.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, Jackie. Jackie.
I'm sorry. If I may add, regarding social service requests, I think Susan was talking about maybe NYCHA. I think we do have to. This is the issue we've been talking for a while. I think we have to also talk with the committee members just to make sure that what issues we as community board can help to resolve, and what type of issues we may not be able to do much. And I think that is an ongoing conversation. We'll try to, I'll try to talk to Alicia. Maybe we can explain more at the subcommittee level.
Okay.
I could say one thing, just going back to Trevor saying it was in the minute. I never read the minutes for agenda items. Never. I don't generally read the minutes.
No, that's understood, but you used to attend all the meetings, so it was easy to translate that information from a committee. When you're not there, then there's a responsibility to get that information to the office. I put it in the minutes because I certainly can't remember everything. And if we didn't put it in the minutes, there would be no way for anyone to know that Parks wants to go or agency needs to go to or wants to come back in 3 months or 2 months. That's the reason why it's in minutes. I know you don't read them, but that's a way for us to remember, because otherwise there's no way to document that.
If I could suggest, because this is what I do because things get lost so easily. If Parks brings up something in a meeting, if you could ask maybe the committee members to just like immediately shoot me an email to check with Parks about such and such item.
I can try, but then we'd have a whole bunch of immediate, because it's not just Parks, it's EDC and other agencies that we're trying to do stuff. So I understand what you're saying, but in a real world, we'd all like to be able to send out calendar invites and reminders as soon as they happen, but it just doesn't happen. I mean, I can try, but it doesn't happen that way.
Just trying to be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna stop it there at that part. I have some other things I want to address. Unless there's any other questions about agenda items. No? Good, okay. Eric just stepped away. I wanted to include him on this part. Maybe you can hear me. I am going to task Eric with an opportunity to kind of look at some of what the other community boards have been getting in terms of agenda items as well, to kind of see what they've been doing and see how it kind of may affect CB3 as well, and if it's worthwhile to take a look at. So that'll be his task. When he comes back, he'll be very surprised, but I will talk with him about that afterwards. Also, I'm going to just go into this right now, the potential reorganization of committees. So I am expecting, from what I've heard, that there will not be a lot of reapplicants, or there have been a lot of people that have not reapplied to CB3.
I'm sorry, Paul, can you just repeat that? I'm having a little difficulty hearing you.
Sorry. I'm expecting, and I believe that there are not a lot of people who've reapplied on this reapplication cycle for CB3. We also were not getting a lot of applicants for CB3 at the same time. So I'm expecting somewhat of a hit over the next month of when these interviews take place at the borough president's office. And I think this is going to be an opportunity to kind of restructure a lot of things. And by that, I mean the committee restructuring. I may open up the door to having every community board member that's being brought in, whether they're new or renewed, to maybe select a new committee or change it up. I know with transportation, I'm thankful that David has been the interim chair over the past couple of months, but I don't want to have him in that role. I would like to select a new transportation chair. And maybe that doesn't happen until I have new members come in, or what I know is the new roster coming in for this next year or so. This has been a kind of a little bit of a challenge. I've heard that a lot of people have not reapplied for whatever reasons, and they have their reasons, but I think this is the opportunity to change things. I know I've spoken to some of you about it. This may look like you're going to see the first move of it tonight. You're also going to see, I'm going to take a hard look at the subcommittees overall, whether it's NYCHA and arts, and whether that's going to potentially be folded in to bigger committees. So Jackie, this is something we've spoken about. I am seriously thinking about moving NYCHA overall from a subcommittee into just the land use committee, and renaming land use into land use and housing, so that maybe we can do things that way. And that's my idea. That's where I'm thinking of going. I do need all of you to buy into that. I need the entire executive committee to buy into that. And I would like for you to buy into that, because I want to change things. I do want to see some changes. I'm going to ask the committee chairs as to what they want to do, who they see fit. They ask people who may want to be on your committee, who have not been on your committee, If Eric wants to join transportation, right? He doesn't. Right? If that's the case, maybe that's something we can change up. Maybe somebody else wants to go somewhere else and change it up. I think this is the opportunity with probably more new members. I consider a lot of people from 2020, 2021 new members because you were on Zoom most of the time. And I'm gonna, over the next month or so, all those members from 2020, 2021, I want to bring them in here so we all get a chance to know each other. We've seen each other on Hollywood Squares this entire time. Now I want to see each other face to face, right? So that way you have an understanding of everything that we do as a board. It's difficult when you're on Zoom and I was technically your mentor, but I saw you for only a couple of times, right? So, I want to change things up. I want to change the tenor of everything here. So it's going to start with committee reorganizations, and it's going to start tonight when I address the Chinatown subcommittee. What do people think of that? Is that too ambitious, or should I slow down? Now that I've been in the role for a couple of months, I'm all ears. Go ahead, Eric, and then I'll go to Trevor. Eric and then Trevor.
On the NYCHA subcommittee, I think they should still consider it such an issue that it needs to be given its kind of time and space for it. The lack of leadership, I think, is the downfall, like any committee. But I think it's something I wouldn't, on my side, I don't know that the time lends itself for one committee to address the NYCHA issues with land use issues all in one. And my biggest concern, frankly, is if it gets absorbed into a bigger committee. As it is now, the NYCHA subcommittee kind of lacking the interest or lacking the leadership or lacking the vision to come up with agenda items, it'll just totally phase out and not even be considered as part of a bigger committee that has land use as its focus. So those are some of my thoughts and concerns. I'm happy to talk to you more offline about it. I see that your intention is to kind of put it all into one, but I don't think, myself being a NYCHA resident, and others that are committee members, I just think it needs right leadership. And I think it deserves that. As opposed to other subcommittees that, as we're going to address later on, you're right, they kind of just never got back up and running. Coincidentally, the purpose of that subcommittee is now being supported by Hocho and others, so that he kind of was able to do good and for this community. But NYCHA is something that is ongoing, and it's just more and more focus that needs to be put on. So I think it merits its own committee.
Okay, Trevor.
Well, my comment is only on the Chinatown subcommittee, which hasn't met and it hasn't done anything in years. And I've been asking for it to be removed. And now that apparently the council member is planning his own rezoning, which will include a lot more areas, it really serves absolutely no purpose other than to have a few names on there. And I know people in the past may have been afraid to remove it for optics, but I think we haven't met, it serves no purpose. We will not meet, so it should go.
Okay. I saw David and then I saw Jackie. Jackie, go ahead and then I'll go to David. Go ahead, Jackie. Yeah, I'll mute Jackie.
I'm sorry. Regarding the NYCHA, I mean, Paul and I spoke about that, and I understand the reasoning behind. But I guess, like I told Paul, I just want to make sure that the NYCHA committee members are respected, like they're consulted first. I have a feeling that some NYCHA committee members may want the subcommittee to remain independent, and how to, I just want this process to involve everyone, and that is for the NYCHA. And regarding the Chinatown neighborhoods subcommittee, so I feel like that was created when Gigi was the chair CB3, and then I think it became dormant after she left the board and has been inactive since that time. So, and that's even before I become the chair. So I personally don't have a strong opposition to just dissolve it. But again, I also feel like I want the committee to be to have time to discuss or at least be informed before a decision is made. So, I mean, I understand you are putting a resol out today. So if you're asking me to vote, I'll just vote abstention. But I don't think I agree with, I mean, I do not oppose that, and I understand where Trevor is coming from. So I don't have a strong opinion on that either.
Yeah, we'll get to that specific in a little bit, but just overall, thinking about reorganization, go ahead. Oh, sorry. David, then me, sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say that one may be a special case, under any leadership. I don't think this would be much, but I know that there's desperate situations that, you know. But in general, there are too many committee meetings. It's impossible to spread them out so that there are no collisions at the moment. And I've observed that there are people who appear to have selected their committees so they don't have meetings to attend. You know, and that's the only possible because we actually have such things that just never meet. So anyway, I think that this is going to be a good thing. Thank you. Go ahead, largely, yeah.
So I'm also one of the original members of the Chinatown Subcommittee. And I recall that it was formed for a very specific purpose. You know, that Chinatown working group that had the different zones of A, B, C, and D, or E, right? There's A, B, C, and D, right? So ECP, Department of City Planning, was particularly interested in looking at what they called Section A or Zone A, and that was in the core of Chinatown. So it wasn't the most at risk, right? The most at risk is like where Trevor lives. But anyway, but they were interested and was like, well, let's take advantage of it. So that's what the subcommittee was formed for. So no one's ever done anything about it, and that's one of the reasons why, in terms of Zone A, no one's ever done anything anyway, and that's why it never met. You know, and so in terms of DCP, and now there's also this grant from Hochul, which will help, and then there's this other thing going on with where Trevor lives, which is Section D, I think. So I think, yeah, it's just, it's not that people were are not interested. It just, its function didn't. The function was more never happened.
Okay.
Put it that way.
Is there any other hands raised? Great. Andrea, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the Arts and Culture Subcommittees. I know there's been a lot of deliberation about this extensively, and Paul and I had some discussions. I think that were fruitful. One of them, for transparency, I wanted to share them. I think one of the things, and you might disagree, but I think that the subcommittee could still be a subcommittee, but I think it would be effective if it put agenda items like within a full committee. And it didn't have like a standing meeting sort of thing. It was just like rather when there was an agenda item that needed to be addressed or a resolution that needed to be passed, to do it directly through the committee, and it wouldn't necessarily need to be economic development or so forth. I don't know if that is even possible procedurally, but I just think that to be effective, I think it would work best that way.
Okay.
In the past, that makes me think, in the past, we have joint committees together and had joint chairs. So it was one committee, they met. There were like two agendas, and one agenda may not happen all the time, but there was a chair to deal. Susan was my co-chair at that time. And when there was a public safety item, Susan chaired that. She prepared the agenda item, and we did it. But people joined the presentation of the public safety committee and had multiple chairs.
Go
ahead. So another thing that's other than a joint, because we both had items almost every year, but more toward what Andrea's talking about, arts and culture used to be part of parks, libraries, and all that stuff. So it could fold back into that and not have an item every month. And but certainly when there was, It would just be part of that. Another option, which I mentioned to Paul, is to have a different kind of committee that may not be a full committee that meets all the time, but meets when it has to, but it's not a subcommittee. And then there's what we've done in the past. We've had task forces. A task force is for a special thing. Like we had at one time the Con Ed task force, which dealt with this money we got, as a settlement. We had a specific waterfront task force one time that dealt with some special issues. We had a night shift task force when we were dealing with infill. So their items can always come up. The task force did not report to committees. They just were their own thing. But they were temporary. They were for a purpose. Another one was Astor Place Task Force. We had that joint with CB2. And we went through the process, the Euler process, and then it dissolved.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Task force, Susan, was that open to the public too, like a subcommittee?
Yeah.
You mean as far as coming to the meeting? All of our meetings are
So
open
the
to the
task
public.
force doesn't have to, at that public meeting, report back to the committee?
No, it was a standalone task force, and they did resolutions, like the Astor Place. We redesigned the traffic there. And, we met with the agencies that came to the joint task force that did resolutions, and we came up with a design, and that was it. It acted like a committee, except when they were done with the work, they disappeared.
That's great.
Susan, you can answer. What was the intention of having the nature subcommittee and the arts and culture subcommittee when they were created?
I think it was somewhat political. As far as I know, we're the only board out of 59 boards that has a NYCHA subcommittee. Everyone, there are a number of boards, like Board 11 has more NYCHA units than we do, but they generally are dealt with land use and housing. Some boards have separate land use and housing. They're always dealt with whatever committee has housing.
And then for arts and culture?
There are arts and culture committees. Some boards have actual committees, not subcommittees, and some don't. Many, it depends on the board. So it really depends on what it is you're doing.
Yeah, go ahead. A lot of it was to create more, like, basic leadership opportunities, more positions that people could fill and be. So it's been, in that sense, it was an experiment. But that was like a goal or an idea that was floating around in creating it. But I kind of think we created a lot of them.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I just have a clarifying question or point. I was speaking with someone who was involved with the inception of the Arts and Culture Subcommittee, which was a task force. He told me that it was a task force about like something that had to do with venues.
Trying to create a sort of a resource list is what I believe the original idea was for them.
Right.
Well, that's always been done. I mean, that committee, it's on our website.
Yeah.
It's always been done. It can be done even by people in another committee, or I'm assuming it's a very useful list.
Yeah. So, did you want to ask something here?
No, I just
Took a big gasp. I didn't know if you wanted to ask something. Okay.
I do ask because of your, I think in context of what you said and starting the conversation about our reach at the moment, and the lack of applicants and things. And I think I sit on NYCHA and I sit on arts and culture, and the main conversations over the past couple of months have been outreach to the community, and I think, Susan, I want to collaborate with you as to kind of a tool, resource, or something of what are agenda items, what are some of the delivery things, that we can create a simple document that share, with members, so they know kind of providing information and collaborating, they know what that is. But I think we are unnecessarily to hear David say that it was created just to create leadership opportunities.
Well, not just,
but in contents, but even the resource the arts list resource is a little outdated too. But I think that there is a piece where there are a lot of things coming up from NYCHA. And there are a lot, there's a surge right now, even after a pandemic, in the arts and culture sector of important issues addressing arts and culture organizations, especially in our community district. So I think it is something that we should think about in your reorganization.
Yeah, no, but these are definitely all things on my mind. This is the opening discussion. I'm not committed to anything specific right now, but this is what's been on my mind. This is some of the conversations I've shared with some of the committee chairs, and this is some of the conversations I've shared with Susan about this is maybe the direction I would like to go. Trevor, then Jackie.
Just real quick, and Susan, if you could provide some clarification, because I know there are different types of task force, one that are actually created by CB3, which follow CB3 rules, and some that CB3 members participate in, which don't necessarily follow the voting rules, like resolutions and reporting back. If they were created as a task force, do the same attendance requirements go for each task force? Because I can't remember how it works for CB3.
Yeah, I was speaking only about CB3 created task forces. And yes, everything is the same, whether it's attendance, whether it's task force, subcommittee, committee.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. Jackie, last question.
Yeah, I just have a question. So previously, you have mentioned that you may want to merge land use and economic development. So if that goes through, does that mean arts and culture also going to report to this committee, or how is that going to work? I mean, how do you envision that?
Well, I haven't made any decisions on economic development just yet. There's some items from the economic development that could probably go into land use, some that could probably go into transportation, depending on that stuff. So like I said, this is the preliminary conversation. I know a lot of us have had offline conversations just about some of my thoughts, especially when I was running. And then once I became chair, of kind of what my thought process was. But now that I'm anticipating new members very soon, I'm thinking I'm going to rev this up a little bit so we can try to go in that direction. And I am open to all suggestions from everyone. This is not a decision that I'm just going to make in a vacuum and they'll say, here, say yes. No, I'm not going to do that. It's going to, or tell the full board, yeah, this is what we're going to do. No, I'm not making this decision in a vacuum. So I want to hear from everyone.
What's your goal to make that change?
I would like to start making some of these changes by May. So it gives us some time to operate. Okay. I have nothing else from my board chair report tonight, as well as that potential reorganization of committees. If there's any questions from me, feel free to reach out to me. Most of you have my phone number. I think all of you have my phone number. And email me. And we can always have that conversation. I'm always open to any kind of conversation. And now I'll move it over to the district.
So before we move over, yeah, I don't know when don't put it up now, but I guess
It's going to come in later.
NYCHA subcommittee doesn't have a calendar date. Is today the last day to put one for April?
There's no items. There's no items.
Is it too late to do an item that we talked about earlier?
It's too late. If you read, if I can ask people, if you read the committee chair handbook, it always says that it is always too late to put an item on at the exec.
Okay, at exec. So now it's not the perfect time. Because I just know due to the lack of a chair leadership role at NYCHA subcommittee, I suppose there really is no kind of leader pushing to put an agenda item on. So when do we get to do it? Can it be suggested by any member?
So there is a chair. She knows when to submit items. If there was items that needed to be suggested to me, she should have done that ahead of time. And that's part of my frustration here is a lot of people are doing different things, have different roles in the community, and they're not sending in their stuff or letting people. And yes, when I'm looking over this stuff a couple of days before exactly, I'm like, cancel it because there's nothing coming. So, it gets frustrating on that. Susan, go ahead. I know
I want to tell you, last week, I emailed every chair and said, please send me your agenda items. And then I emailed a second time, and then Paul emailed. It's not that people are just forgetting. I mean, I try harder than I should have to.
No, no flow of office whatsoever. I was suggesting that.
And I'm going to also say, there's a lot of work. You got, I don't think anyone, maybe except for Paul, has any idea of the amount of work that happens. And one of the things we have to plan, and we have a monthly cycle, and it's like, this is when we get the meetings, this is when we do this. And you have to get work done and then go on to the next thing. And you can't just keep going back and doing the other thing. It's been bad enough this month because of the Zoom stuff. It's just making us crazy. But we have to have some procedures of we get stuff done, and we do try and accommodate. It's like, you know, sometimes there's something that is just adding a discussion item or something like that, and we'll try and do that. But we don't have a meeting scheduled, and we spent time trying to schedule that meeting.
And I guess only because I know the chair wants to do, may start figuring out some rearranging. If night shift falls into that kind of decision making, and there's still no agenda items being put on in April, I'm just concerned.
The subcommittee meets every other month. This month, it's night shift. There's no committee, there's no agenda items, so the meeting is canceled. The next opportunity for a subcommittee meeting is in June.
So
But I can get the items now.
Yeah.
I can start working on anything now. I'm happy to work 2 months in advance.
Thank you, Susan, for that.
Um,
And so then there won't be decisions made on night shift subcommittee then by May. I'm hoping.
No, I'm not moving forward on a lot of this stuff until I have a better process. This is the opening conversation. Go ahead.
Is there anything Eric or I can do to support you, Susan, and you in with agenda items, kind of communicating with the committee chairs? You know,
So Eric had walked.
because I was not aware that you were going through this.
I've been doing this for you.
No, but I was not aware that you weren't getting, like, I don't, until I come here is when I hear that you're not getting. So in my work, if I don't get an email to tell me this is happening, I don't know what's happening.
Right, so what I'll task this both the first and the second vice chair will be to start looking at what are the other boards. I mean, don't just limit it to Manhattan. Look at Brooklyn, look at Queens, look at Bronx. I see some of the things that they've been working. This is that opportunity and be like, hey, maybe this is something that affects us too. This is where the both of you can work on something. The three of us can have a discussion on. It's something that's been on my mind that I would like to see. Kind of. I think Laura had her hand up before. Am I correct or no?
I was, because I feel as though Tariq had asked that question months ago and wasn't given a response, and he asked it again tonight and still wasn't given a response. And we keep going around the same circle where we keep being told that there's so much work being done. But then when I know I'm not getting those emails of saying that there's work that needs to be done, I'm actually a little bit upset that there's not going to be a night shift meeting. There's not a night shift agenda when there's so much happening in housing. And I didn't hear from my chairperson to say that there was nothing on the agenda. So I just want to make sure that I'm on record, and I know that the meeting's being recorded, that I need better communication from both of the chairs and both of the subcommittees and committees that I sit on, because there's not a lot of dialogue happening if I don't hear from Susan or just the agenda item for the month or something from you, Paul. I needs to be better, and I'm sorry, but people need to be replaced.
No, that's fine. I appreciate that.
And I think right now, I mean, just Susan expressing what she's expressing, you know, I think it's, as an exec, we can be doing more, right? You know, yes, there's an awareness that we sit on this board, we have other things that we're doing, you know, but we can be communicating with one another and it just not sitting on Susan, you know, because I hear you, you're managing so much, but I'm sitting, if I don't know how to help, you know, in context, second vice chair dealing with attendance, so my brain is like, okay, I gotta start looking at attendance, you know what I mean? But if I don't know the other things that I could be doing, I can't activate.
No, I agree. I agree. And Laura, I definitely hear your point. And I hear you three, because now that's what a lot of today was about for me. It's like, now we gotta start figuring out who's doing what and what we're gonna do and how we're gonna attack it. But
I'm gonna say, I really hope that COVID goes away, because I kind of think, you know, for 2 years, since we've been meeting through Hollywood Squares, it's true, you know, there's no like, let's grab a beer afterwards, and you've got 4 committee members, and then you're sitting there talking, and you kind of realize we could maybe do that, or, you know, this is just not happening. And I hope that that's part of the problem, because I'm hopeful that's.
I think it is. I think there's some part of it. Jackie, you're the last one, because I want to move to Susan.
But no, but I mean, it did help create agenda items when you could sit there and say, hey, you know, that kind of thing happens after.
It doesn't happen on Zoom.
Yeah, so I did look at the NIPES minutes. The last minutes, I don't recall who drafted that, but I looked at that. Looks like there are something going on with the NIPES subcommittee, and I thought that you guys gonna continue the work that was discussed in the previous month, and I think I mean it looks like, I mean, even if you don't have new agenda items, there are still some work you can follow up. So I don't know, Susan, is that, I mean, if we don't need to invite outside speakers or guests, if I communicate with the chairperson, are we able to put some items on the agenda? I mean, I just want to, I mean, I hear Laura's frustration. Are we able to do something? If we don't need to invite guests?
I'm sorry, Jackie.
Do you want me to?
So we would just address this. We can't, we're not doing a meeting this month for next year. It will be on for June. If there's items that need to be followed up on, that need to be put on for June, that's where it's going to end.
Yeah.
All right, like that, the April ship is set, it's done.
Yeah.
You know, we can't put any more work on to the office, to Susan, to anybody else. We can't, it's the timing of this. This is why I'm talking about it. It's a bad situation. This is a lesson learned. We're gonna look at it. It's a lesson learned. We're figuring out what our roles are and what we gotta do. Thank you, Jackie. Okay.
Jackie, I'm gonna say, you know, I kept sending you emails. You know, you could have looked at that a week ago, and we could have discussed it a week ago.
Thank you. Susan, you can now go on.
Thank you. I actually have a lot of stuff. So first of all, I want to say for next month, I'm going, at the time of the exec, I'm going to be out Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. My 15-year-old granddaughter's taking a train into New York City all by herself, being the grandmother. So I will spend about an hour, I will spend about an hour by Zoom for this meeting, but I need to have this stuff in advance. I cannot be doing it last month because I need to have the exec wrapped up by, you know, except for minutes coming in. I need to have the exec wrapped up by Tuesday evening. So I'm pleading with people. I'm happy to start planning tomorrow. I'm happy to start, you know, talking about whatever you want, but I'm hoping everybody will go along with that. I went to 3 committees this month to discuss status of budget, where I never really have on this at this point before. We have a preliminary, the administration has released the preliminary budget. The next fiscal year starts July 1st. We have received responses to our budget items. I have sent them to all the chairs, and they are all under member resources to do that. There is a process for responding to preliminary budget. And I will say last 8 years, we really haven't done that very much because the truth was de Blasio didn't read any of that. We have a new administration. I know DCP in particular is more community minded. So it's worthwhile to try and engage. So I went to land use and I went to human services and transportation to engage with the committee members. I think was a good idea because I think people forget about the budget. Like in land use, people didn't remember that they had voted for priorities. So we got to review that part of the process and explain what was happening now. The budget is very important. And I'm just trying to work with committees and ask for your help on how to engage the committee members in this. The district managers of the 59 boards have met with DCP and asked as far as district needs, say we want, in the last 8 years, it was kind of taken away from us and it was made a DCP document that we were supposed to follow their rules. And what we said was that we want to take it back and make it more our document. And they seem very open, so we're going to be having open meetings. So I just hope the members will get engaged. And when I do send this information to you, like, there will be an executive budget in a couple of months that'll send to you before the adopted budget. I would encourage you to send it out to your committee members, kind of explain what's going on. If you want me to help, I'm happy to do so. So I'll do that. Just want to talk very briefly about the shootings last weekend. There were several homeless men in Washington, D.C. and 2 in New York. They were shot, one fatally near us. It was actually a CB2, I think, but it was very near us. One thing that was disturbing, among others, that was disturbing, is I received a call from the 5th precinct at about 8:30, because they wanted to let me know before I read about it. And I happened to be on an email chain with some outreach workers because they were looking in on people that were close by, and I sent them the information about the shooting. They had not been informed. They were out on the street outreaching to men who were being targeted. And of course, that makes them targets, and they hadn't been informed. And I did write emails to DHS about their protocols. I'm hoping to be a little bit disruptive, but I just found that there's kind of like too many silos with city agencies where they're talking within each other, but not to each other. The mayor has issued a blueprint for economic recovery. I don't know if everyone saw it. I don't know if anyone read it, but one of the things they decided they would do is take away from community boards our SLA questionnaires and our stipulations and rewrite them for us. People, this is buried in there. I actually got an alert from somebody, so I knew to look for it. I've now brought it up again with the 59 boards, and I've asked it, having it be a discussion at Rural Service Cabinet meeting. I think it's appalling. I'll have to see how the other boards react. I've asked Brian Kavanaugh to please talk to the SLA and find out what's going on there. So we'll just have to follow that through. I've been keeping Michelle updated about this. I've had 2 meetings this week. One phone call, the CB2 Chair of Human Resources called.
Social services, right?
What?
Their committee is called social services.
I don't remember. I don't know. Social services. Suzanne is the chair there. They've been dealing with some of the same issues that we've been dealing with recently. And she called because of the mental health issues. It's a homeless issue, but it's much bigger than that, the lack of mental health resources. And her suggestion was that CB2, CB3, and maybe another community board that's very impacted, have a joint meeting and bring in some providers or experts to talk about the lack of resources and what we need. and maybe have press there to try and, get attention to this. It's right before the adopted budget, so maybe we could use it to advocate and lobby. So May, Suzanne and I are having a phone call next week. So I just wanted to make people aware of that. Another meeting that came up that we've been talking just in general to the DA's office for over a year about convening organizations as a resource and getting them together. So under their new leadership, they are now doing this, and I've had 2 meetings with them. Paul is on one. And we're going to have a meeting of several of the organizations and the DA's office, and bring up this idea of a network. There's evidently an Human Resources Network of East Harlem that they said is a great model. It's social service providers and the community board and the DA's office. I think the DA's office is on there. So we're gonna explore this, have a meeting with a number of organizations and explore the needs and how we can, the DA's office could be a resource. I asked them, they wanted us to actually do a lot of the facilitating, and I asked them to do it. So we'll see how that goes. I think it's an exciting idea. PSA 4 has just asked me to be on their police advisory council. This is a police reform thing, so I'm on 7, 9, and PSA 4 now. I guess 5th precinct doesn't like me. So the first meeting's next week. One more thing. And so we were all Manhattan boards were audited by the controller last year, and every year or so we get another audit of some type. And they audited us for basically an open meeting thing. We had been audited several years before, and every board came out perfectly. The people who did it for the last controller, it was a very strange, horrible thing. We all complained a lot. We even went to the law department about them. And so one of the things they're saying is that the charter says every board must have a public meeting, public hearing once a month. And we all thought our public sessions were public, would suffice. And they're saying, no, it's not a public hearing. You have to have a topic. So I was surprised to find out that a number of the community boards are now doing this. They're either combining it with their public session or having it afterward. And I'm thinking, I don't know if it's something we should pay attention to. I mean, I was just ignoring it, to be honest. I figured that controller's out, that report's in the garbage. They did a lot of things, like they tried to say that we had to make our meetings available for live streaming, and therefore we had to do it. And that's where we actually went to the law department. The law department said no. So, there's certainly not the bottom. So that's something, Paul, I'm going to sort of hand over to you as an idea if you want to talk to the other board chairs. Some of them are paying attention, some are doing kind of a workaround, and some are ignoring. And that's it, unless I'm David.
I never spotted that they said we had a public hearing. In the city charter, this idea is a little alarming because I think a public hearing has to go until the last person has stopped talking.
With ULURP it does. I'm not quite sure if all public hearings do. I know for ULURP it absolutely does.
It would be something to maybe try to figure out if they're trying to force us to do that kind of thing. That's just not something that most board members are going to be willing to sit through.
Well, the other boards that are doing it, what they're doing is that they're just combining it. Some of them are doing it after the meeting. So of course, no one's going to stay until after the meeting. Some of us saying, okay, we're having public session and our public hearing topic is the restaurant sheds. I'm perfectly willing to ignore it. I don't know if I should be saying that in the video.
I will look into it.
Yeah, maybe at next borough board, you want to talk about that.
Trevor has his hand up. Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, just before committee reports, and nothing to do with Susan's report, I'm just curious for this hybrid meeting where the microphones are, where they're located in the office.
They're up top.
On the ceiling? Yeah, I think, and I think the rest of the people who are doing this remotely hear a lot of static, like every 3 to 4 seconds, and it's heavy static that I don't know if this is the first one or if there's an issue, but I know there was money paid for the installation, and they could probably just listen to the meeting and determine where the fault is, but there's static every 3 to 4 seconds when you're speaking. We can actually hear you, it's just the static that happens.
Okay, that's good to know. We've only done one hybrid meeting, right? It was the
No, we've had more.
Yeah, we've had some more in
We've
here.
had at least one SLA.
One SLA.
And I'm sorry, maybe 2 SLA, I'm not sure. I think it's been more than one, maybe 2, maybe only 2.
All right, because I want to catch these things.
Michelle might remember,
All
I
right.
think.
Linda, go ahead. Thank you, Trevor.
Linda, you're muted.
It's a problem we all have. That I did attend a couple of SLA meetings that were hybrid, and we did not hear all this. Your voices all echo a bit, like you're sort of shouting from a distance, and then there's all the static. And they didn't have that, and I think they may have passed a microphone around and not used those room microphones, and that might have made the difference. Michelle would know for sure, but I didn't hear the sound like this. In fact, I was surprised at how good it was.
Okay.
We
I
did use these, but we also passed around the hand mics.
Yeah, I figured we didn't need the mics tonight, but I guess I'll do that for next time. Okay.
If we had to go on with this, we could try to learn how to use that owl, because that would also work in this environment.
Okay. All right, any other questions for Susan? Okay. Susan, anything else? World Trade? No.
Pardon?
World Trade Center? No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
I didn't have enough to talk about. This was another, things happen. So this was another call this afternoon. I got a call from Brian Kavanaugh this afternoon, and he's on this committee. There's one site at the World Trade Center that's not developed yet. It's in CB1. And there is, it's going to be housing. There is a proposal for mixed use housing, and there is a coalition that wants 100% affordable housing. And I think CB1 supports the coalition for 100% affordable housing. Someone said CB3 wants to be on this committee. And I said, that's absolutely not true. It's never been discussed at CB3, and there's never been a position of that. So Brian's had agreed to call and ask us if we wanted to be involved in this coalition. Like I said, they're looking for 100% affordable housing. It's in CB1. CB1 has not invited us to do this. So I am reporting about this. We have on certain issues worked jointly with CB1. Rikers, they did with us, even though the ULIP wasn't there, it was across the street from us. And they actually had joint meetings with us, and, you know, have in the past at certain times invited us to work with them. They have not on this. I'm always very careful of community board jurisdiction. So I am just reporting this to you.
Go ahead. Do we know anything about the funding? Is this coming out of some funding pool that was?
There is funding. It's, I believe, private property. I found out this afternoon. There is not funding to make it 100% affordable. What I'm told, if it is, then there's, I think it's 25% affordable. It's 25% affordable at 50% AMI.
I guess my question is there funding that was destined to be covering the zone that was 14 and below that's involved? That would be the kind of thing that might trigger our interest.
There is funding for this site, for, you know, this site, for affordable housing for this site. It is a private-public partnership. So some people, this is not a 14th Street and below thing. There are, I think, some people saying that as a catchment area, at one point it was canal and below, which was true, but that was environmental issues. That was ultra low sulfur fuel and construction issues.
Yeah, I don't, We have not been invited by CB1. I know there's other people that may want to reach out to us from this coalition, but CB1 would need to formally invite us, and then I can make a decision about that. That's it. Susan, anything else?
No,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. All right, we're going to move to committee reports. SLA already went, and we will now go to Trevor and Parks. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just had my hand up for a quick question, and I see Jackie did also, but my question is quick. For Essex Crossing, which was probably at the same scale in terms of number of housing, was that a multiple community board effort, or was it just one community board?
Which, I'm sorry, what was the question?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
It was just us.
Okay, thank you. So for Parks, I'll do my report.
Let me get your report. Go ahead, Jackie.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah,
And sorry, Trevor. Susan, the question is for you. I'm just curious if you recognize any names in that coalition. Not that I'm interested in joining, but I'm just curious if you know anyone specific.
I'm looking at the information I received. They don't have the coalition members on here. Someone had, I think a long time ago, reached out to me about it from the coalition. And they seem to be reaching out instead of CB1. And I think at that time I said, could you have CB1 reach out to me? This was quite a while ago. And I'm not even sure what they were even asking for. So it wasn't a committee. So no, I do not know who's in the coalition.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jackie. Sorry about that, Trevor. Go ahead.
Well, that's fine. So for our Parks Committee meeting, we had our normal monthly ESCR update, mostly construction issues, which will continue every month, along with the Community Advisory Group, which also meets at this, every month. But we did have one resolution, speaking of collaboration between community boards. Community Board 1 had written a resolution supporting the creation of a skate park and some public space underneath the Brooklyn Bridge. This space is actually in two community boards, Community Board 1 and Community Board 3. There was a group that was pushing and had been pushing to make this space public again and to return the skate park, which is now under the jurisdiction of DOT, and it serves more or less as a parking lot and storage space. One thing we did initially for our resolution is that we were trying to support CB1. I did send it out to community members beforehand, but that sort of created a Word docx track changes type of issue when you have multiple people working on a singular document. So at committee, what we did was we basically kind of started with a document which was similar, but we called it a new document. Susan did catch some issues that won't affect the substance of the resolution, but will make it more corrective and more supportive of CB1. They are on the vote sheet. I will propose to make these changes, and there's probably one whereas that needs a little bit more information, but most of them are to change it because we didn't have reference to what like some of the support items where we were actually supporting CB1's position. The committee, just how committees are sometimes, didn't necessarily think that we needed to support all the things that CB1 did, but I think the changes that Susan made were smart and they do work for this resolution.
And this yellow sheet shows the track changes.
Say again?
The yellow sheet.
Yeah, we have a printout of the track changes at the.
Right, if you take a look, most of them it has been reported by CB1 or CB1 supports. And they are fully supportive, obviously, of this conversion, and I think it's a pretty good one, to be honest.
So you're going to propose those changes at full board during your report. Jackie, you have your hand up. No?
Okay.
Okay. So Trevor, you're going to propose these changes at full board, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is there any questions for Trevor? No? Okay, great. Thank you, Trevor. Transportation, David, please.
It was brief. It was brief. No emotions.
Oh, it was brief. It was 30 minutes. I remember.
Thank you, David. Human Services, May.
Yeah, so we don't have any resos for the full board to vote on next week. However, we did some planning discussion about a panel event we want to have. It's for June. We have done these panel events before. Usually it's a panel of providers, of service providers in a certain covering a certain area. So I think the last one we had was, or one that we had that was kind of pretty good, I thought, it was about healthcare, and we had all the providers were like the FHQCs, the federally qualified health centers, and which technically is not. And they talked about their needs, their own needs of the organization, the needs they were seeing in the community. It was to form our district needs, and also members of the public could come, and they kind of talked to each other. There's like a little synergy between the groups, so that was kind of nice. So we plan on one in June. The topic will be students in temporary housing, resources needed for homeless adults and families, and mental health services for street homeless persons. So this topic, I mean, it's very relevant now. It's also one that we have never covered in any of our previous panels.
It's also very catchy. I like the pithy title.
It will be shortened to like 5 words.
Any questions for May? Thank you, May.
Oh, if I could, sorry, I didn't raise my hand.
Yes.
This is Larissa. Just wanted to report back a little bit regarding the space at Gouverneur, their auditorium. I've sent an email and I've made a phone call to the person for booking. I have not heard back from him just yet. I'm going to keep trying. Currently, they are not permitted to do in-person meetings, but I'm hoping to reserve it in case that changes. But I will update you as soon as I hear from them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, next, land use. Go ahead, Jackie. Sorry.
Thank you. So we had Councilmember Mate and Senator Kavanagh's reps came in to update the committee on 265 South Street. And so they are pushing the developers to follow the restrictive declaration, which include funding the independent community monitor for remediation. So far, they have not received response yet, but they expect that decision should be made before the construction begins. The other request was for the construction task force. So DCP is following up since there's no permit filed yet, so it has not been established. Also, since the ownership of the building is in transition, there was a suggestion made by committee members to invite the contractor to come to the committee meeting, but I feel like I want to have a conversation with Susan first, because just to discuss the feasibility, I don't know if a contractor would be interested or can come. So, and also we work on continue to work on the green questionnaire, which I think should be finalized next month.
Okay.
So can I,
Go ahead, Susan.
Jackie, can we start with so this is for May, you're talking about the contractor?
Yes, I mean, yes.
Start working on that next week? Can we start?
Yeah, you, Susan, because of the static.
Can you start working on that next week with Susan?
Okay.
Thank you.
That voice was clear. Whoever that was very clear.
It's the actor in me.
Tariq. All right, thank you. Any other questions for Jackie? Okay. No, arts is already done. Okay, so Chinatown Neighborhood Planning Subcommittee. So as I mentioned earlier, this is the first change we're making to committees. I will read to you the resolution that we will put forward for hopefully for full board.
It's on the back.
It's on the back of your, it's on the back of your, or in your email, whichever one. But for everybody here, it's on the back of your agenda sheet. So under Chinatown Neighborhood Planning Subcommittee, I'm gonna read through it anyway. Chinatown Neighborhood Planning Subcommittee met once in July 2017. Two of the original members are currently on the board. The goal of the subcommittee was to make recommendations to the Land Use Committee within a year regarding small businesses, economic development, affordable housing, transportation, and culture/arts. For various reasons, this committee was not activated and has been dormant for the last 5 years. The Land Use Committee is a co-applicant for rezoning a section of Chinatown, which has priority because of the immediate need to protect the Chinatown waterfront from overdevelopment and displacement of the existing community. Therefore, this subcommittee should be dissolved as there is no current activity in this subcommittee. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
The sentence about the co-applicant for rezoning a section of Chinatown, should that be Chinatown / Lower East Side, or should it just be Lower East Side? For those of you involved in.
I'm gonna, I want to defer to.
What sentence?
So the Land Use Committee, after 5 years, after where it says last 5 years, the Land Use Committee is a co-applicant for rezoning a section of Chinatown, which has priority because of the immediate need to protect the Chinatown waterfront from overdevelopment and displacement. So you want to say Chinatown / Lower East Side? What's?
Well, if it's the area I'm thinking of, isn't it sort of?
Section D.
Yeah, so that is more like Chinatown / Lower East Side, isn't it?
Or section of Lower East Side, right? The section of, right, sections of Chinatown and the Lower East Side, that would do it.
So we want to change that line from the Land Use Committee.
Does that sound right, Trevor?
Yeah.
It's just adding /3.
Well, unmute.
I'm having difficulty understanding everyone. I understand May had said something about whether it should read Chinatown, Lower East Side waterfront, but I'm not exactly sure what the correction would be. It's difficult to understand. So I think all of us on the Zoom portion are trying to decipher what is being said.
If you can hear me, I propose the language, which I'm asking you, do you like? Instead of rezoning a section of Chinatown, maybe it should read rezoning sections of Chinatown and the Lower East Side.
Well, actually, the subcommittee was only formed for Chinatown.
Part D. Part D.
Was it? I thought Chinatown was part A.
Yes,
Right.
Chinatown is part A, and part B is the rezoning, right? So this refers to the Land Use Committee is a co-applicant for rezoning a section of Chinatown. Should that instead read Chinatown / Lower East Side? Because it's
Correct.
section B?
Correct.
Okay.
It was easy.
So that's Chinatown /
And then after the
I made
immediate,
that addition.
at the waterfront, is that Chinatown / Lower East Side waterfront?
Correct.
Okay, so we're changing it up to the Land Use Committee is a co-applicant for rezoning a section of, David, can you just give me the language again?
I can read it if you would like.
Hold on,
I
Laura.
have that.
Chinatown / Lower East Side
So
and
I
both.
can read it from the Land Use Committee is a co-applicant for rezoning a section of Chinatown and the Lower East Side, which has priority because of the immediate need to protect the Chinatown / Lower East Side waterfront from overdevelopment. That
Well,
would basically. be it.
correct. It would. I think it would be CB3 actually, not just the Land Use Committee for accuracy, right?
You're correct.
CB3 is a
Land
co-applicant.
Use Committee and so CB3 and the Land Use Committee.
Just
Land Use
CB3.
Com- Land Use Committee and CB3.
No, just CB3.
No, just CB. Sorry, it's hard to hear everybody. I apologize. Okay, so CB3 is a co-applicant for rezoning a section of Chinatown and the Lower East Side. Which has priority.
East Side.
I'm sorry.
it's,
The only change is where there was the word Chinatown, both should say Chinatown / Lower East Side.
Okay, so we're not changing land use committee to CB3?
And then,
Oh,
yeah, we're taking.
yes, CB3, you're correct, that's a separate change. CB3, co-applicant.
Yes.
It's a co-applicant. Yes, that's what that was the change I made. Thank you.
COVID will go away soon.
I think the static tends to come in when it's loud. I think when Tariq, you had a nice even tone and you weren't overly loud. I think then the microphones don't get that staticky sound. Because I think that's what happens. Just throwing that out there.
So my comment is, it's kind of jarring to go from, it has priority because of the immediate need and so forth. Therefore, the subcommittee should be dissolved. Maybe there's a thought missing in there about how that old effort isn't happening. I actually think there's something else cooking, like a new push to the rezoning that isn't being mentioned here. Maybe it shouldn't be, or
No.
there's not. Well, there's an idea I thought out there by the new council person. In any case, it's just jarring to read, there is an immediate need to protect, and then therefore the subcommittee should be dissolved. So I just feel there's a thought missing that it would help.
can someone refresh my memory? I could have sworn that this subcommittee was formed only to deal with section A.
No, I took this from the minutes. The subcommittee met once, they had very good minutes, and everything up to the co-applicant start is word for word from the minutes of the subcommittee. And then I added the part of the co-applicant, which if you want, you could take that whole thing off.
I would
And
suggest based on David's, because he's reading that be taken off. But I kind of feel like what May said, that I was under the impression, and I know those minutes are there, but I was under the impression that was formed specifically for Chinatown, but I could be wrong.
I agree. I was in the initial meeting.
that's not what the minute, I could send everybody the minutes, that's not what the minutes say.
But
So-
that's fine, but the focus definitely, DCP was not interested in everything that was in the Chinatown working group.
This was the subcommittee, yes, but this wasn't about the DCP thing.
But to sort of wrap this a little easier, I agreed with David about the jarring part. Just take out that paragraph.
Just the whole thing. So after it says, and has been dormant the last 5 years, therefore the subcommittee should be dissolved.
Yeah, because that's the real reason why it should be dissolved. It's been dormant for 5 years. We had one meeting.
Okay,
Yeah, so we're gonna strike out everything after 5 years, and then therefore the subcommittee should be dissolved. Got that, Larissa? We're
I
just
got
taking
that. Thank you very much.
the whole sentence.
Okay, and then the last thing is, since this will be the language of the resolution, therefore this committee will be dissolved. We should change it from should be, will be.
It's fine. I'm moving. Any other changes? Okay, so I'm gonna need a vote on this one. Larissa, go ahead.
Okay, sure. Okay. Let me get back up to roll call.
That's my son.
Sure. So this is accept the resolution as
As revised.
or written. Paul Rangel,
Yes.
Eric Diaz,
Yes.
Tariq Darrell,
Yes.
Marissa Shaneberg, yes. You guys are funny. Laura Lugo,
Yes.
I'm tired.
absent. Lee,
Yes.
Jackie Wong, yes. Is that yes, Jackie?
He said abstain.
Oh, it's abstaining. Okay, abstaining. Thank you. Linda Jones,
Yes,
Trevor Holland,
Yes.
and David Crane.
Yes.
Great.
passes. Thank you.
4 and 1 abstain, right?
9, 4, 1 abstain. Any old business? No? Any new business? Before we vote to adjourn, I want to thank everybody for their flexibility and patience tonight, and we did start talking about some new things, and I normally go a lot shorter than this. I know I kind of set an interesting precedent over the past couple months, but I thought today was fruitful, and I appreciate everybody's comments tonight. I thank everyone. Thank you for letting me know about the technical difficulties on your end, so we can try to resolve this. We may just end up being face-to-face anyway next month. So that being said, Larissa, close us out for our final attendance, and then we'll adjourn.
Sure. Paul Ringo,
Yes.
Eric Diaz,
Yes.
Tariq Darrell,
Yes.
Marissa Shaneberg, yes. Laura Lugo. Herman Hewitt, absent. Mei Lee,
Yes.
and Jackie Wong.
I'm sorry,
Jackie-
yes.
That's okay. Linda Jones,
Yes.
Michelle Cooper Smith, she's already gone. Bear with me, sorry. Technical difficulties. Okay, Trevor Holland. back on.
Yes.
And David Crane.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Here.
Oh, thank you, everyone.
I'll see everybody at full board on Tuesday night on Zoom. You're adjourned.
So how about, a bite or beer or something? Wow.